and welcome back to the Bundesliga Show, brought to you by Over the Bar and, of course, in partnership this season with Bundesliga Boxes. So if you guys are new to the channel this season, we have an ongoing partnership with Bundesliga Boxes, who are an authentic German football shirt provider, but they come in mystery boxes. So basically, you never know what football shirt or football team you're going to end up with when you buy their boxes, amongst a host of other things that come inside the boxes, like matchday programs, scarves, all sorts of nice posters. So yes, in association, in partnership with Bundesliga Boxes. So make sure you do check out their company and their products online or on Twitter. Just search Bundesliga Boxes and you will not miss them. Of course, me and Mark sporting them very nicely today, as per usual. Yes, very flashy. So yeah, match day 2 review. So coming at it off the back of another exciting weekend of Bundesliga action. A couple of shock results, a couple of firsts as well for Bochum and Fürth. So yeah, without wasting any more time on the formalities, let's get straight into it. So we'll head over to Mark, who of course will be revealing the first answer or result of his anagram from last week and the new one for this week. So Mark, over to your fine self to start for Mark's mystery anagram.
Yeah, so let's start off by recapping last week's anagram, which was, for those of you with good memories, Scholar Kynes. Yeah, as you can see at the bottom of your screen now. And yeah, I mean, we did actually get someone who got it correct on the live chat as well. Rory's eyes, did well to spot you there. Ian Banthorpe, our kind of marksman from last season, starts off with another correct answer there and it was indeed, I gave you the tip last week that it was a new signing to the Bundesliga because I thought it was a bit of a difficult one, this one. But yeah, Ian got it. It was Niklas Dorsch. Of course, Augsburg's midfielder signed for about 7 million euros from Belgium. Niklas Dorsch was the correct answer to Mark's mystery anagram last week. So let's quickly move on to this week's mystery anagram, which, as you can see now on the bottom of your screen, is Coaster John. Coaster John. So that's Coaster, the second word, John, John. So remember, it has to be a player, a coach / manager, or a team from the Bundesliga. I'm not going to give you a tip this week because, in my opinion, this one's a little bit easier than last week's. And obviously, Ian got it right last week. Let's see if we can have some more of our regulars, some of our new guys commenting, see if you can get it right this week and make it 2 out of 2. Yeah. So yeah, Coaster John is week 2's Mark's mystery anagram. So let's quickly move on now to the results from week 2 in what has been another very, very entertaining Bundesliga week of action, as always, really, in the Bundesliga, isn't it? So let's have a look at the scores on the doors for week 2. So on Friday night, we started with a 4-0 win for Leipzig over Stuttgart. Then moving on to the Saturday games, we had a first Bundesliga win in this stint in the Bundesliga for Bochum, beating Mainz 2-0 at home. Then we had maybe a shock 0-0 draw between Frankfurt and Augsburg in Oliver Glasner's first game in charge at home for Frankfurt. Then we had the shock of the weekend, didn't we? Freiburg getting a 2-1 win at home against Dortmund. We had Greuther Fürth's first points in the Bundesliga with a 1-1 draw at home to Arminia Bielefeld. We had Wolfsburg getting a good 2-1 win at Hertha Berlin. And then the evening game was a bit of a surprise result, really. It was a 4-0 win for Leverkusen over Borussia Monchengladbach. Then on to the Sunday games, which were also very entertaining. We had a high-scoring 2-2 draw between Hoffenheim and Union Berlin. And then to finish off the weekend with one of the most entertaining games, Bayern Munich getting their first win of the season with a 3-2 win over FC Köln. So that rounds up your scores on the doors. So let's go to the next part of the show, which is, of course, the OTB's featured 4. So this is where me and Rory, we have a discussion. We pick the best 4 games of the weekend. So let's start off with what was, in our opinion, the best game of the weekend. It was indeed the Leverkusen 4, Borussia Monchengladbach 0. Yeah, I think it was the best game of the weekend, unless you were a Gladbach fan, that's for sure. I mean, this was a really, really good performance from Leverkusen, wasn't it? I mean, for me, Mitchell Bakker was the one that really stood out. I thought he was brilliant. I had him in my fantasy football team as well, so I was chuffed about that. Just a pity I didn't have him down as my captain, that was all. But yeah, I mean, he started the ball rolling, didn't he, with an excellent drive, which hit the kind of inside of the post and then smashed onto Jan Sommer. And that was already 1-0 after just 4 minutes. And then it just didn't really get any better than that for Gladbach, did it, Rory?
No, it did not. It was a afternoon or an evening to forget for Gladbach. Yeah, as you mentioned, 1-0 down very, very early doors, and the second goal would come shortly after that. DRB getting past his opposite number or his fullback, the young American fullback who had a good outing last week, but did obviously ultimately struggle against the pace and power of the RB. So he got in behind his man and set it up for Euro star Patrick Schick to get his first of the season. So yeah, very nice finish, very confident finish as well. So that was obviously a big plus for Leverkusen. Their big man, their big striker getting off the mark. So obviously that made it 2-0. Gladbach did try to respond. Obviously they did hit the post on the 15-minute mark. But then another big blow. It seems to be the case with Gladbach that all these kind of bad things do seem to happen at once. They never kind of just, have a poor result where they just, they play badly but only lose 1-0. If things go bad, things generally go really bad for Gladbach. So as we saw last season. So then they lost Thuram to injury, which after all the praise me and Mark have been heaping on him last week, obviously that's a huge blow on about 20 minutes. So again, very early in the game. So yeah, that was a huge blow for them, losing Thuram. And then, I mean, all sorts of things going wrong, defensive mix-ups, where Schick was the benefit. The ball going through on goal for him, but he wasn't able to score on this occasion. So it's looking like, the formalities were going to be as such. But the aforementioned Bakker, as good as a game as he did have, he did concede a penalty, didn't he? For his tackle on opposite number Liner, who also got injured in the game. So that was another big blow, but it wouldn't have been such a big blow if Lars Stindl had converted his penalty, which he did not. So obviously after the VAR check, they decided the tackle from Bakker was in the penalty area. And yeah, a really poor penalty from Stindl, who's usually deadly from 12 yards. He's usually quite a solid penalty taker. I thought that was a really poor effort from him. So ultimately it was saved, not in the corner, no power on it. So yeah, very poor execution on the penalty for me. And then yeah, the rest of the game kind of was a formality. So it was 3-0 after fine work from Bakker making up for his mistake with regards to the penalty. He managed to get the ball over to DRB, whose shot in the box was deflected. So that's 3-0. Obviously, kind of game over. And then a late fourth goal. A nice crossfield switch onto Wirtz, who knocked it back for Amiri. And I enjoyed his celebration, actually, Amiri, as he held his ears with his fingers in his ears, because he is one player who does often get quite a lot of stick, probably in the press and from his fans as well, with regards to maybe not doing enough, maybe not providing as many goals or assists as his potential, would allow him to. So maybe that's one to watch, and maybe Amiri would be able to press on with the club this season. So yeah, very impressive from Leverkusen, and then. With regards to Gladbach, all that early season optimism after the creditable draw with the champions on Friday night, so much energy at Borussia Park on that Friday night game, and then it's just like a stone in water. It's just they've sunk straight away to a really poor loss. So that will feel really bad for them. losing Thuram, Liner, and Ginter in the end. So that's 3 injuries that they've gone straight away, and in match week 2. So that's really, obviously we hope there's not bad injuries for any 3 of them. I'm not sure the extent of any of them are, but that's not encouraging for Gladbach in those terms, and they'll obviously need to put in a performance on in match day 3 to get themselves back in the mix, because obviously now just one point from a possible 6, or despite it being a very tough start to the season, you'd probably want to at least try and got 1 win. So yeah, lots of work to do, I think, for Gladbach in the end.
Yeah, I think for me, this game was a tale of 2 left backs, to be honest with you. I thought Mitchell Bakker, despite giving the penalty away, I just thought he was absolutely brilliant, to be honest. I think he's a real kind of bargain signing from PSG as well, because I think the reason why he was flogged by PSG was because he just wasn't good enough defensively, which, yes, it's definitely a question mark, but he always looked solid going forward, even for PSG. And this is a guy that started both legs of the Champions League semi-final last season, remember? So it's quite a coup, really, I would say, for Leverkusen to bring him to North Rhine-Westphalia. It's a great signing, but yeah, he's not the best defensively, but going forward, he's going to get bags of assists and he's going to create bags of chances. And he looks a good player, that's for sure, at this level. Mm-hmm. And on the other side, Joseph Scally for Gladbach. I think we actually had a comment last week from one of our American viewers asking how good he was. And I think both me and Rory both said he was excellent against Bayern. He got the praises of a friend of the show, Derek Ray, as well. Yeah. But this game, he just had an absolute mare, basically, to be honest with you. He was getting absolutely skinned by Diaby, a number of times just in the first 10, 15 minutes, and I think that just kind of ruined his confidence, really. Diaby he's probably one of the fastest players in the league, to be honest. The guy is absolutely lightning, and he's going to have a big season ahead of him. If he can maintain his consistency this year, I think Moussa Diaby is going to be one of the players to really look for this season, obviously, especially after the departure of Leon Bailey. It's going to be interesting to see him play a more peripheral role for the side now. Schick also, he's made a good start as well. Good performance, good finish for the second goal. It's going to be interesting to see what Leverkusen can do this season. Obviously, we saw them start last season with that brilliant, 11 or 12 matches unbeaten before an unfortunate defeat to Bayern, and they just collapsed after that, basically, didn't they? It was, they have quality in the side, a lot of quality in that side. I think also Kosunu as well, Kosunu, the big money signing at centre half, is starting to look like he's having a bit of an impact as well, from what I can see. So maybe we might see a slightly more assured Leverkusen side alongside Jonathan Tah in that centre-half partnership this season. But yeah, great performance from Leverkusen. Disaster for Adi Hütter's Gladbach. Okay, so moving on to the second game, the big shock of the weekend, which was, of course, Freiburg's home win over Borussia Dortmund. This was a game where, for me, Dortmund kind of flew out of the blocks. They created a lot of chances. I thought Jude Bellingham was fantastic, especially in the first half. He really looked excellent in the game. He was getting forward a lot more than what we saw at times last season. He looks really confident now in this Dortmund side. Clearly the end of the second half of the season under Edin Terzic has really kind of boosted his confidence, and he feels like he belongs now at Dortmund, and I think he's going to have a great season. But they couldn't quite get that opening goal, could they? And then obviously on 6 minutes, it was only 6 minutes when Freiburg got the goal, but what a free kick this was. Oh my God. This was an absolute beauty from one of our kind of stars of the season on OTB Bundesliga show last year, Vincenzo Grifo, wasn't it? Rory. Yeah,
well did a free kick, hit with pace, hit with accuracy, in off the post. So, there's no margin for error when you're hitting them from that far out as well. But what a way to start the game and get, the home crowds absolutely at fever pitch. So, that was a perfect start for Freiburg. I thought Bellingham was really good for Dortmund. I think he is going to be, an all-round kind of midfielder. Depends on what Dortmund want to do with him this season in terms of how far forward he can play. But I think, if he gets a sniff, of that kind of attacking role, then he could really grow into it. Of course, he's got time on his side anyway. So yeah, he's obviously involved heavily in everything good Dortmund did. I thought obviously he did well for the header where he hits the post. He then is basically the player who's trying to get on the end of the cross, which puts Dortmund back into the game at 2-1. So obviously I'm missing out a goal there, but so I just wanted to mention how well Bellingham kind of got involved. But yeah, it could have been 2-0 a whole lot sooner than it was. So it was Woo Yong Jong who got on the end of a really good cutback, who I didn't actually see who put in the cross, because all of that was basically down to the player who made the cross into the 6-yard box for the player to run onto, and he's just side-footed it from the centre of the goal wide. Like, you've got to score those. So that should have already been 2-0. But eventually they did break down the Dortmund defence again. So a very good counter-attack led to Jong actually putting in the cross this time himself, headed back down into the middle where Roland Salai was there and waiting to meet the ball on the half volley to make it 2-0. I know, obviously, me and Mark have always kind of talked about this in terms of obviously Dortmund's defence. It's a topic that won't go away for Dortmund fans, and there's plenty of chatter about it amongst plenty of people and fans of the Bundesliga in general. Obviously, first goal, you can't blame the defence. That's just a worldie of a free kick. That's just down to individual brilliance from Grifo. The second goal comes, and without being overly critical, I just don't think that the ball coming in is too easy. They lose the ball in the middle of the park. They don't retreat in numbers quickly enough, Dortmund, and then the header is won too easily by Holler, and then players, ultimately in the wrong positions, and Salah is free to half volley at home 2-0, which, 2 goals isn't always enough against Dortmund to get a win, but it was. So crucially for them that Freiburg held on. Their defence was outstanding to hold off the talents of Haaland and Reina and everything else that was being thrown at them. I thought they did a fantastic job. Shout outs for Schlotterbeck and Lienhardt in the centre of that back four for Freiburg. I thought they were excellent alongside a real kind of team performance. So as much as we said it was a shock, completely deserved, I think. And Dortmund, 5 stars in the first game, but this again is a throwback to the reality of the oversight of maybe how they've spent their money or how they've targeted certain areas. You look at Dortmund and you always say, well, they're going to score goals. Of course, they are the attacking talent they already have. So while obviously losing Sancho is a huge blow, of course it is, and then getting the replacement in terms of Malen is very smart business. But then surely your next priority is to look at anywhere across that back four. They've obviously addressed the keeper, and Kobel will be a sensible and safe pick, but so much work to do for that back four, I think, still, before Dortmund are really contenders in terms of actually pushing for a league win. So whether that's addressed before the transfer window shuts or in January, we'll have to see, or if it's done at all. But yeah, plenty of work for Dortmund to do. But ultimately, I want to praise Freiburg more than anything, because I thought they were outstanding.
Yeah, I think absolutely. We know that they're a tough side to beat at home in particular. I think I said in my predictions on Thursday that, I didn't think this would be easy for Dortmund. I thought that Dortmund would get the win, but I think that was maybe me slightly disrespecting Freiburg, because they know what they're going to do under Christian Streich. He's a very, very experienced coach. I mean, this is a side that have been, not even close to relegation for years now. Do you know what I mean? They operate on a shoestring business, but I mean, they bring quality players in. I think Schlotterbeck has been brilliant the last 2 games. Obviously, he actually spent last season on loan at 2 seasons ago. Sorry, he was on loan at Union Berlin. Since then, he's come back and looked really, really good for Freiburg. He's been fantastic. But I think, overall, the Dortmund defense is just it's just not the standard you need to be at the club of the size of Dortmund, basically. I mean, the first problem is the fact you get one major injury at centre-half with obviously Hummels, and you bring in a central midfielder in to play centre-half who's never, as far as I know, he's never played centre-half in his entire career, and the guy's like 31, 32, Axel Witsel. I mean, he's far from a centre-half by any means. He looks lost in that position. It's not really fair to him, a good player in his own right, to make him play there and kind of, do you know what I mean? Like, throw him to the lions, really, in some ways.
Yeah, but the problem is that he's the leader in there.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got a Kanji next to him who made obviously a terrible error in the first game. Obviously, it didn't cost them in the end, but he's got him there. Akanji's incredibly inconsistent. The fullbacks, obviously, they lost Paslak or Schultz to injury, so Guerrero is now returned, so that's a positive for them. But now they've got no cover there really. The right back position is completely up in the air with obviously I think it's Rory who's out injured. Paslak, obviously people aren't exactly incredibly confident in Meunier, so it's completely scrambled at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they do have injuries, absolutely, and you did see a few of those guys returning. Like Hummels came on towards the end of the game. Emre Can came on as well, who's last season started pretty much every game for them. So maybe we will see a bit of a stronger side in the next game. But yeah, do you know what I mean? In the same fixture last season, they lost away at Augsburg despite having like 75% possession. And that's exactly what's happened again this season at Freiburg. They had 76% possession in that game. And at the end of the day, I would say Freiburg probably created more chances despite only having 24%, So, I mean, it's just, at times it's just not good enough for Dortmund these days, is it? And it's a reality check for Marco Rosa. Obviously, they were quite comfortably beaten by Bayern in the Super Cup on Wednesday evening as well. So after that brilliant 5-2 result over Frankfurt seems a long time ago already now, doesn't it? And they go again against Hoffenheim this weekend, and that's a big game because Hoffenheim are causing teams problems as well at the moment. So we'll have to see what's going to go on with that one. But yeah, congratulations to Freiburg. Always good to see the little teams punching above the weight as well. Great result for them and fair play. Okay, so talking about little teams probably punching above the weight a little bit as well. We've got Bochum getting a fantastic 2-0 win over Mainz. I mean, I don't think anyone really saw this one coming because obviously Mainz, I mean, they had that fantastic result last week, didn't they, over Leipzig, despite having like half the team out through COVID. I mean, that was just an incredible result, really. But then I think they came into this one, obviously they were the favourites to go to Bochum and win. And I think Bochum basically did what Mainz did to Leipzig on Mainz this week, basically. And I think this was a brilliant performance from Bochum. We sang the praises high after the game against Wolfsburg last week. I thought they were good in that game. But this game, they showed us what they can do going forward a lot more as well. And obviously, I mean, the big talking point of the whole game was the goal from Gerrit Holtmann. I think a name that we're going to see quite a few times this season for Bochum. On the German commentary, they called him the Bochum Messi. And I think that goal was a goal that would do Lionel Messi, the great man himself, proud, to be honest with you. But, I mean, we've got to say, though, I mean, the defence that was so brilliant for Mainz last week against Leipzig went pretty AWOL, I think, in that first goal. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was brilliant play from Holtmann, but, I mean, there were 2 or 3 chances to tackle him when he went on that brilliant dribbling run before he obviously finished it past the keeper. Well, what did you think of that one, Rory? Do you think it was more brilliance from Holtmann, or do you think it was the defence should have done better there?
I'd probably say like an even mix, really. It was a brilliant goal to watch. Individual brilliance and bravery, just to just have a go, picks it up obviously just inside the opposition half in Mainz's half, and just like I'm going to have a go past a couple of players early on, then kind of surveying the area where how do I get into the box, kind of runs across the box and then gets an opportunity to get inside. Attempted tackles everywhere, players trying to scramble around, and then he obviously pokes the ball home under Zentner, and what a lovely goal! What a way for Bochum to announce themselves onto the Bundesliga stage. Perfect in front of their home fans. So, it was fantastic to see that. And then that kind of, as you mentioned, displaying what they had going forward. So Holtman, was a threat. Zoller as well, thought he did a really good job at the top as well. Tested Zedner on a good few occasions, an overhead kick, showing off some skills there. And again, from the corner that was produced from that, he also thought he scored, but VAR came in to disagree, saying that he handled the ball in order to control it before scoring, so it stayed 1-0. But they were able eventually to make their dominance tell. I think it's fair to say dominance. I think Ryman in net had to make one save just before half time. Otherwise, that was pretty much it. And then this time it was Zoller putting in a cross for Poulter, who was able to power home with the header to make it 2-0. And that was pretty much that. Bochum played it well after that, I thought, just a couple of those niggly fouls, stopping the momentum of the game, being, just game management, basically, simplest way of putting it, slowing the game down when you had to and not really allowing Mainz to gather any real momentum. Very smart play as well. And again, only real kind of notable save was from Ryman, was probably from Steiger in the second half, as Mainz just couldn't get themselves going. I thought he summed it up well in the fact that Bochum did a Mainz, on RB, as we saw last weekend. All that kind of energy has been kind of sucked out of Mainz a little bit, but 3 points from their first two games, no problem whatsoever. Bochum, fantastic start really for them. I thought they, as you mentioned, put a fine account of themselves into game one, and I thought this weekend they really stepped it up and put on a show for their home fans to enjoy first bit of Bundesliga action for 10 or so years. So fantastic win for Bochum, and hopefully that's a sign of things to come.
Yeah, I agree with your praise of Simon Zoller as well. I think when we did the kind of preview of Bochum coming up, we said that much is going to depend on him because he had a great season last year in the Zweite Bundesliga, but his previous record in the top tier was pretty poor. Yeah. But 2 great assists, and he was a little bit unlucky not to get that goal that was disallowed. It was a correct decision, but it wasn't really a deliberate handball, was it? But I think, he had a brilliant game, I thought. And Poulter, he's one of those classic Bundesliga centre forwards. You give him like a header in the 6-yard box, and he's going to bury it. He's that kind of guy. He might get a few goals, probably not bagfuls, but if he can get 8 to 10 goals this season, then he's done well. I think also the defence deserves credit as well. Bella Kotchap, who actually was really, really highly rated in the second tier last year. He looks a player that's destined for bigger things, with all due respect to Bochum. He was good alongside Lambropoulos as well, the Greek centre half. B-Man as well. Byman is really a good goalkeeper for me as well. Whenever he's called upon, he makes a save, doesn't he? He could be our new Ortega. I think we mentioned it last week, and this week I'm even more convinced that he is the new Ortega. Manuel Riemann, excellent performance from him again. As you say, he only had to make 2 saves, but the one in the first half, just after Zoller had the disallowed goal, was a massive save. Because if Mainz get level there, then they could well go on to win the game for me. But massive save. He proves that he's a man for the big occasion. Fair play to Bochum. Fantastic results. And best of luck for the rest of the season. So on to our final of the featured 4 games, which was the Friday night game. A bit of a thrashing, really. I think in the predictions, most of us had this down as being open, which it was, having a lot of goals, which it did. But I don't think many people had this down as a 4-0 thrashing, really, for Leipzig over Stuttgart. I think, Rory, you want to kind of pass over this one a little bit quickly, obviously, as a sympathiser of Stuttgart. But all the great things that they did in the game against Fürth, they kind of made mistakes in this game, really. With all due respect, though, Leipzig were fantastic. They had a lot to prove under Jesse Marsch, and I just thought they came. I would say the first half an hour was pretty even, actually, in the game. It wasn't very one-sided. I thought Leipzig took a little bit of time to kind of assert the dominance on the game, but once he got the goal, which was a brilliant goal over Salazar.
Yeah,
I mean, this was a great strike. Probably could have been a bit better pressured by the Stuttgart defence. But, I mean, it was a great hit, that's for sure. And then, obviously, getting the goal to go in 1-0. And then the second half, they had it absolutely dead and buried by 52 minutes when Emil Forsberg ran onto an Andre Silva pass, which was a great assist, actually, from the Portuguese big signing. And then, yeah, it was just so comfortable from there on, wasn't it, Rory?
It was, yeah. It seems that match week 2 has almost been a complete contrast for all the teams that started the season well, because we've seen Dortmund did brilliant, Stuttgart did well, credible draw for Gladbach, and all of those teams have had stinkers this weekend, and RB had a point to prove, Bayern. So, yeah, interesting that a lot of teams have reacted well to disappointment from the first week, but not many teams, apart from Wolfsburg, have been able to back it up. The Friday night game, I wasn't able to watch it live. I was at a wedding, thoroughly enjoying myself responsibly, of course. 4-0 didn't flatter RB. I thought it was a fast start by both teams. The first goal, I think, as you mentioned, completely perfectly, beauty of a strike, clean strike as you like from the young man. Szoboszlai, but should have been closed down better for sure. The second goal, really good, kind of typical kind of neat, close control, good passing from RB Leipzig to make it 2-0. The third goal was a bit of a strange one. Adding to his first goal. Szoboszlai was able to make it 3-0, where he kind of fizzed in a free kick from out wide at a weird angle and missed everyone, including the keeper, and nestled in the back of the net. Just one of those ones where it can happen. 3-0 game over. And the cherry on top of the cake of a Friday evening for RB was, of course, when Kempf was deemed to have handballed the ball obviously inside the area, which given as a pen, allowing Andre Silva to open his account for his RB career, making it 4-0 and rounding off a really good evening for RB Leipzig. So they're back in contention now, off to a positive start at home and in front of their fans. So they'll be dead chuffed with that. Stuttgart now, blown their good goal difference, unfortunately, has gone now to neutral, having conceded exactly 5 as well as scoring 5. However, came up against a very good RB Leipzig team. Stuttgart will be fine. They will test big teams, but they'll also have to just make sure that they defend slightly better. And obviously they were punished by a clinical and very at-it RB Leipzig side. So very entertaining game, but well done to Leipzig, because that was a very impressive performance, I thought.
Yeah, I was just thinking there, Rory. I think the Hungarian winger is one player that both of us are going to have to kind of check on the pronunciation of that one, because that's one from the Paul Merson book, I think, that one, isn't it? I mean, that's a great one, that is, yeah. I mean, fantastic player, obviously a big money signing, actually last January, but he was very unfortunate to get an injury, I think, just after he signed in pre-season, actually, which ruled him out for the whole of the second half of last season. But he is a player that's very highly rated, was good in the Euros for Hungary, and then very highly rated. A lot of people have been looking forward to seeing him play. Wasn't very good against Mainz last week, but was very, very good in this game. I think definitely big credit to him. Obviously, Andre Silva, he probably didn't have, to be honest, in the first half, he was heavily frustrated. It looked like he was trying a little bit too hard at times to get the goal.
Yeah.
Obviously, coming with expectation to be the man that can finally fire RB Leipzig to the German title. I mean, you could see the relief when he knocked that penalty home, the relief. But even though, to be fair, it was only his second game, I mean, we're not talking about a goal drought of like 20 games here, but he clearly, big things are expected. People will be expecting him to get around about 25 goals at least, really, this season in the Bundesliga. That will be the expectation, I would imagine. And he knows that, and obviously getting that big goal is probably, for me, the best thing that happened in this game for Leipzig, because you need to get him off the mark and firing. I think as for Stuttgart, to be honest, I think the only worry for them is the first half performance wasn't bad, but I just think they kind of, I don't know, once that second goal went in, they just gave up, basically. I got that feeling, really. I think, but with the exception of Wataru Endo, who I thought was excellent all the way through the game. He always is, really, and he was trying to rally the troops, but some of them kind of gave up, I would say. I would say that the main thing for Stuttgart is they need to get, obviously now Kalajdzic is injured again. He came on as a sub for his first appearance, then he got injured as well. I don't know how serious that injury is, but for me, Hamadi Al-Gadoui, is he going to be good enough to lead the line for Stuttgart over the season? Obviously, getting his first goal last week against Fürth, but for me, he's not the answer, really. Obviously, last year was barely even on the bench. Do you know what I mean? I mean, the guy wasn't really given much of a look, and they need to get Kalajdzic back and firing. I'm not sure how long his injury is, but that will definitely be a worry for them, because without him, they could, and obviously with the other injuries they've got, the likes of Silas, Gonzalez departing as well. They do have quite a long injury list coming into the season, so they need to try and get that as low as possible, as quickly as possible, really. Okay, so that's the end of the featured four. So let's quickly go through the other 5 games of the weekend. Yeah, no better place to start than the late kickoff on Sunday. I mean, what a game this was. I mean, 0-0 at halftime. You're thinking this is a boring game. Nagelsmann is not really getting them firing at all. But then all of a sudden, by 60 minutes, they're already 2-0 up. Then I went out to get myself a drink, and it was already 2-2. I thought I had to do a double take on this one. I was like, what? This is not possible, you know. But obviously, in the end, Bayern still getting the winner through Serge Gnabry after 74 minutes. Rory, would you say this is more of a... Who would you say would be happy with that performance, really? Would you say Bayern or Köln, despite losing?
Well, yeah, obviously, ultimately, from a result perspective, of course, Bayern. Yeah, it did look like one of those games that could be a bit of a tetchy 1-0 win where Lewandowski scores in the 90th minute or something like typically Bayern. And it did look like that was going to be the case, because obviously he did score the first goal. A tap in from superb work from the halftime substitute, Jamal Musiala, who came on for Leroy Sané, if I'm correct. There was 2 subs at halftime. But yeah, obviously Musiala was one, so Sané maybe has a bit of work to do there, because obviously it was his first season. Last season it wasn't as impactful as he would have wanted to, and then the second half of the season he started to look like the Leroy Sané of old, and then obviously being subbed at halftime isn't always a good look, unless I've missed something and he was injured. But I've not seen it yet, as we're recording, of course, on Sunday evening. But yeah, so that made it 1-0. So Lewandowski, and then it was backed up 2 after good work from Goretzka, lovely cross across the box, and then Gnabry was able to react well to tap home to make it 2-0. Then obviously, as I was watching the game, I was thinking, yeah, pretty tidy, 2-0 win. Could be more here for Bayern if they want it. At home to get their season underway, but Köln reacted superbly and got a lot of joy in the wide areas, which again, for I think quite a lot of Bayern fans, they've been saying that right back's been a bit of an issue. They've had the young lad come in and did a good job, certainly in the first game and in the Super Cup. He came on at halftime as well, actually, and probably didn't have his best 45-minute game. It's not always easy coming on in a defensive set. As a sub, it can be a struggle sometimes, and Köln obviously got their 2 quick-fire goals as well. It was a mad kind of 12-minute period, or wherever it was, where we saw the 4 goals. I was struggling to keep up with it, but yeah, the first goal, power header from Modeste, got up well, and yeah, Neuer's not getting anywhere near that from a lovely cross. So that's 2-1. And they absolutely respond again by going down the opposite wing this time. Pretty sloppy from Bayern, just allowing them to get into nice areas to put in crosses like that. And this time, Mark Uth, out of nowhere. Tapping home, sliding to poke home to make it 2-2. Was onside after a VAR check. Made it 2-2. Game on, absolutely. But I think Köln just probably missed their opportunity. They just started to... maybe allow Bayern to control the ball a bit more. I thought it would have been a good time to go on the attack if they could. They brought on Duda, in fairness to them, who, obviously is a talent for getting goals. They're trying to get down the wings with Hector and other players like that. But didn't quite happen, and then the inevitable did happen. Bayern get the ball into the box, falls for Gnabry, powers it, lovely hit. I want to say the keeper should do better, but of course he's hit it so sweet. Maybe it's gone through him before he can even react to make it 3-2 and obviously win the game. So yeah, Bayern off the mark now. Good win for them, an important 3 points. Cologne will be pleased with how they went about their business. Attacking. Again, every time we talk about Cologne, we say they're better when they go forward and have purpose, and they don't sit back. And they are capable of scoring goals. The introduction of the two big men will give them something this season, a bit extra, like Modeste, header, power, Oots. As much as he struggled last season at Schalke, he was their only kind of outlet really last season. When Schalke did well, it was usually centered around him. I think they've got something there that they could partner up quite well and cause issues. But exciting game, and probably just narrowly missed out on our featured four this week.
Yeah, without doubt. Yeah. Moving on to the league leaders after 2 weeks. It's actually the only team with a 100% record as well, and that is VfL Wolfsburg, who got a 2-1 win away in the capital in Hertha Berlin. A side that are kind of famous for losing at home, really, aren't they? Let's be honest. But yeah, I mean, this game was, I think the first half was pretty incident-free, to be honest with you. Not an awful lot happened. Then the first big moment really was when Joshua Brooks went through. Then he kind of tackled the forward in the box. The ref didn't give the penalty, but then VAR double checked and it was a stonewall penalty, really. I think Brooks, as much as I like him, he can make those clumsy fouls sometimes, can't he? And this was another one of his. Didn't really need to do it, to be honest, but kind of went through him, the penalty. Then actually there was quite an interesting moment as well to show perhaps some of the kind of dissent in the Hertha Berlin squad between David Selke and Dodi Lukebakio. Mm-hmm. I mean, for me, obviously after last season, I was a bit shocked to see Selke step up, to be honest with you, after his effort from Werder Bremen. Yeah. And I think he only knocked in 3 goals after starting pretty much every match. But yeah, he wanted the pen. He wanted to get off the mark for the season. But no, Lukebakio stood up, smashed it in comfortably. And Freddie Bobic, the sporting director, was pretty relieved with that one. Then you're just thinking, 60 minutes have gone. You're thinking, go and win the game here to get a great win over a top 4 side. But it was that, for me, it was one man that turned this game around, and it was that man, Xaver Schlager, from last season. One of the players of the season for me last season in the Bundesliga, and he kind of went on one of his marauding runs through the midfield, and he played a brilliant through ball to Riedel Baku, who's another excellent player from last season, smashes it home. Then you've got the equaliser for Mark Van Bommel and Wolfsburg, and then they went on and won it as well, didn't they, Rory?
They sure did, and a new face, not totally a new face in terms of the Bundesliga, but a new face at Wolfsburg. So Lucas Nemecha, one of the 2 brothers signed from Manchester City. We had heard promising things from our resident Manchester City fan and OTB editor and Spanish correspondent Paul McGarrigy has said that I think he thought that they would probably have good careers in the Bundesliga, young lads, and that Lucas Nemecha, he looks like a beast, to be fair. I hadn't seen an awful lot of him, but he looks like a big unit, and of course came on with about 20 minutes to go and ends up getting the winner, obviously following a bit of a kind of penalty kind of scramble. But completed the turnaround, as you quite correctly pointed out, as Baku latched on to Schlager's through ball to make it 2-1 overall and make it 2 wins out of 2. Only team to have done it so far. So they're fine start, fine work to keeping the squad together, and only look like improving if they can get Nemecha, scoring goals and everyone else kind of working together as they already are. Weghorst had chances in the game, not loads, but a couple. So he might have been frustrated not getting on the score sheet. But Wolfsburg going from strength to strength and solid as ever. Hertha, 2 losses from 2. Next up, the champions Bayern. So probably assuming they're going to be, nil from 3 as well. Worrying signs after what we kind of predicted. We thought we'd see a bit more of a stable Hertha side. They lost Kevin Prince Boateng at half time, the big kind of glamorous signing. He's kind of one that, they've now lost to injury. Jovetic came on for him. He did all right as well. But yes, it's interesting times. Obviously, still no Piatek. Dardai's young, obviously young son playing in the squad. He's not been fit yet either. So yeah, a few troubling signs for Hertha at the moment. So they'll obviously hope to turn up and play well against the champions, but it'll be tricky for sure.
Yeah, and obviously Hertha booed off, quite a few audible boos as well at the end of the game, which proves that the Hertha fans are just not impressed. Obviously a limited crowd because they still have restrictions over here in Germany. I think they can have 40%, but it's capped at 20,000 or something like that. So I think there were around 20,000 in the Olympiastadion. But yeah, not happy, the fans, not happy with what's going on at the club, and big improvements to be made there, that's for sure. So we're going to finish with 3 draws, actually, yeah. But the most entertaining of those was between Hoffenheim and Union Berlin, which was actually a really, really good game. The early kickoff on the Sunday afternoon. I mean, this was, to be honest, in the first half, I thought this was going to finish 7-6 or something, to be honest. Because, I mean, some of the defending was atrocious, but both sides really, really wanted to win this game. And there was a lot of attacking intent. Starting off just after 10 minutes, Union Berlin obviously hit the front away in Hoffenheim with Nico Gleiselman with the second attempt as well. A man that we didn't really see much of last season. But yeah, kind of nodded home from the second. There were a few rotations as well to the Union squad, obviously, after the win in Helsinki in midweek. But yeah, he got his opening goal of the season to make it 1-0. Then I think just a few minutes later, another ball in from Angelo Stiller, making his first start of the season, hammered home, really. Great header from Akpoguma. For 1-1. Then actually a couple of minutes after that, Max Kruse smashed a free kick off the bar, which was it looked in all the way. I mean, this was so unlucky. Then actually Awoniyi went through on one a couple of minutes after that as well. Good save by Baumann. Probably should have scored though, really, in all honesty. Then just a few minutes again on the half-hour mark, Andrej Kramaric with his 4th assist of the season. Yeah, nicely playing in. One of the players of the season so far, really, Jacob Larson. He actually only returned from Anderlecht in the summer as well. I was a little bit surprised that they let him go to Anderlecht because he's always looked good whenever I saw him in the Bundesliga before last season. Come back with his second goal in 2 games. Then, I mean, second half, Rory, was more of the same, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was a bit of a kind of matchup who can end up being the winner or the most influential player between Kruse and Kramaric. 2 fine players, and they're going head to head, trying to kind of set up either their own players or try and score themselves. The interchanging play, the partnership between Kruse and Awoniyi, I thought was very good. Obviously, they kind of almost took it in turns to try and set each other up, but obviously to contrasting fortunes on each occasion. But yeah, it was such an open game and very entertaining throughout. On another day, probably could have been 4-4 rather than 2-2. I was particularly interested to see how well Union went, particularly after being very new to the whole Thursday-Sunday thing. But they obviously did a fine job on Thursday, winning 4-0, and did, as you mentioned, do a few changes, bit of rotation. But the business that they've done this summer, I thought, obviously allowed that, and they were obviously very competitive against what we've already seen, a very dangerous Hoffenheim team going forward. So 2-2, I think, is a pretty sound draw for them. Obviously, they've pretty much got the job done in terms of their Europa Conference League. I'm not sure if it's a 2-legged thing or not.
It is, yeah. It's 2-legged, but I think I would expect to see a real reserve team out for the second leg this Thursday.
So with a 4-0 cushion, you'd expect changes so that they can maybe go full throttle in their third game and try and get their first, obviously, win of the season, having now done 2 draws. But positive signs, certainly. Kruse looking as classy as ever. Awoniyi settled in perfectly already, obviously having spent last season on loan. They look good. It'll just be interesting to see how they balance things throughout the season, having been being very new to the kind of way of playing, and obviously on a Thursday and then on a Sunday, but obviously means they will be able to see plenty of them on Sunday games, hopefully broadcast on Sky Sports a little bit more often. So good game though.
Absolutely, yeah. And then obviously, I mean, Fürth getting the first point of the season as well, which might surprise a few people after last week's effort. But yeah, this was a turnaround performance. It goes more to what you were saying before, Rory, that a lot of the teams that kind of failed last week really came back with good performances this week. And while I would say that a draw was a fair result because Bielefeld also created chances, I thought this was a much better performance. I mean, they obviously they had a lot of chances early on, missing a lot of chances. But then that man, Fabian Klos, some would be a little bit surprised he's been given another season as the first choice number 9 for Bielefeld after struggling for long parts of last season. But yeah, that's the kind of goal you want him to see him score. The cross coming in from Cedric Brunner, then he just smashed home a header. Maybe the keeper could have done a little bit better, perhaps. But yeah, it ended up in the roof of the net for 1-0. Then the second half was just really mostly all Fürth, wasn't it, Rory?
Yeah, it was. Obviously, the main protagonist was Julian Green, another player that we did tip to keep an eye on as this new team not a new team, new as in Bundesliga and to the Bundesliga show. Skipped his way into the box, and he was having a real impact in the game, as was Abiyama. If I'm pronouncing that right, we'll have to obviously get up to date with all the different pronunciations of Fürth and Bochum's players. But basically, the end of it was that they won a penalty as a result of a handball, which was converted by Hargota, which again, he was one of their big players for Fürth. So it's good to get him off the mark as well, making it 1-1. And then, big moment in the game as well, a red card for Schkoff for 2 yellow cards. Obviously not ideal, but Fürth weren't able, unfortunately, to make the most of it, not being able to beat Ortega for the second second time in the game. Point probably both teams pretty happy with that, I would say. So good game. Glad to see Fürth are off the mark.
Yeah, and I've got to say, after slating them last week, fair play to Fürth, much better performance this week, and let's hope we see more of that level of performance. Absolutely, yeah. Okay, and the final game was a 0-0. Oliver Glasner's first game at home against Augsburg. I mean, this is another one, I guess, really, isn't it? But not so much for Frankfurt, but Augsburg can be really proud with themselves getting a point there. I mean, I think nobody really thought they would. But I think for me, Rory, that the problem with Augsburg is they just don't really create much at all, do they? Do you think that's going to be a concern going forward in the next few weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. As pleased as they'll be with their overall team performance, defended well as a team, centre-back pairings, again, being a bit of a theme of this weekend. Udukai and Reece Oxford I thought were really good. Obviously, Frankfurt, generally speaking, were the dominant team. Created good chances, half chances here and there. Boré thought he was probably going to open his account before a block from Udukai in the first half. Their new signing, Haig, was able to have a shot as well in the first half. Similar pattern again in the second half. Frankfurt pressing, but nothing ultimately was coming. They couldn't get past the goalkeeper. Point apiece, considering the start that Frankfurt and Augsburg had. Again, neither team would be too disappointed. Obviously, Frankfurt would have loved to have got off to a win at home, but it wasn't to be. But obviously, Augsburg's more worrying stats are going to be at the front end of the pitch in terms of scoring goals. But we'll just have to see how it develops and how they try and get around it basically as the season goes on.
Absolutely, yeah. So let's finish off. So that's the end of our week 2 roundup. Let's just finish off with the hero and zero of the week. So I'll start off with the hero of the week. For me, it's got to be the Bochum Messi. It's got to be a Gerrit Holtmann with that goal. I mean, it was straight out of the Lionel Messi textbook as far as I'm concerned. Dribbling past 4 or 5 Mainz defenders, and obviously it turned out to be the important goal because it got Bochum their first win in this stint in the Bundesliga. So yeah, congratulations, Gerrit Holtmann of Bochum. So and Rory, over to the zero.
Yeah, very well deserved hero, but the zero was probably a melange of different players, but in one team. So we decided to give it to one team in the shape of Gladbach. Didn't have their best outing. Loads of injuries, lots of mistakes. Sommer had a bad game. Obviously, the young fullback Scally. So weekend for Gladbach to forget, but to move on. Hopefully, press on for the rest of the season. Of course, I'm sure they will. But yeah, zero of the week is for Gladbach's team in general. So that obviously brings a close to the show. Obviously, if you're new to the show and you like everything that you've seen, please keep watching. Give us a click on subscribe. Click that red button. Make sure that you tune into everything that's coming out of the site. We're obviously producing 2 shows a week. Obviously, we've got our brand new Thursday show. Well, I say brand new. We did Thursday shows last season, but we now have a new focus around fantasy football alongside our predictions. Mark and Rune got it kicked off last Thursday in fine style. And hopefully we'll all return on this coming Thursday. Obviously, their live shows as well, which is brilliant. So we love the interaction. And keep on clicking that subscribe button for more Bundesliga content. So, Mark, over to you to close out.
Absolutely. So if you liked any more of our stuff, then remember @OverTheBarFB is our Twitter feed. So yeah, check that out. We've got a lot of League 1 and League 2 content as well for those lower league hardcores as well. Yeah, obviously the season started with that the same weekend as the Bundesliga this year, I think, actually. So yeah, they're obviously just having their maybe 3rd or 4th weekend of action. Yeah, obviously we got more and more articles as well coming out every single week, so check them out. And also obviously otbfootball.net, which is the centerpiece of our work. Check that out as well. Look out for the videos and enjoy the rest of the content that we're going to be bringing to you this season. So so that's the end of the week 2 review, and we'll see you again hopefully for the live show on Thursday.
Cheers all.